well, so we should say.
Yeah, we should have like 10 to 11 people joining us online.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and can they indicate to you if they have a question or if they can hear?
Right. Yeah.
So hi online world people, thank you for joining us and for being with us even though you're not physically here. I hope you can hear. If you have any questions, you have Joyce on the computer who can answer anything. But can somebody online indicate if you can hear okay?
It's going to be, there's a lag of like a few minutes, and so we're going to find that out in a few minutes.
Okay, great. So I will start by doing the unfortunate but necessary acknowledgement that we're on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish Nation. And that whole story is just so huge. And I'm always grateful that we can be here and be meeting in peace, when there's so many places in the world where that can't be done. So huge gratitude. My name is Sue Biely. This is Robert Ouimet. We're here today to talk about this crazy thing called digital ladders. And digital ladders, we're going to go back and forth a bit. So we're going to kind of hit through a few things today. We're going to explain the program. Generally, we're going to go through like sort of more specifics. We have some more concrete information about application forms, deadlines, blah, blah, blah. And then just a lot of questions if you want. So digital ladders came about as a response to the Canada Council call for applications around trying to do this thing that they, evolving the digital literacy in the arts and culture sector in Canada. So this was a design and a proposal that we put forward through the BC Alliance for Arts and Culture to this thing called digital ladders. So that is our goal. Our goal is to evolve the digital literacy, and I would also say the digital expression. Part of why I called this digital ladders was we wanted to have this idea that we're evolving and there's steps. And the results of this idea of you can step on, you can step off, you can opt in, you can opt out. It's not like it's a have to. And this is not meant for everybody, but this is really an opportunity. And I would say too, one of the big principles in most of my work, and I think with Robert as well, is a sense of play and fun. So we don't want this to just be like fire hosing, barraging, overwhelming, you have to, you must. This is more like, oh, we could, what if, how about if? Like, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. So far more in that space of meeting people where they're at, and then wanting to work with them to so possibly open up their minds, open up their skill set, and kind of nudge them in a direction that might be new, that is using digital or technology somehow to support the work that is their core work. And very much honoring the skills that all these organizations and artists already have, because they're super important to our society. So what we did is we sort of divided the ladders into 3 rungs. So they are, and this is digitalladders.ca is what I have on screen. And I think we have 3 things: salons, learn to do labs, and workshops. So we're going to go through and explain each one as we go, but we just want to let you know that there are 3 rungs of the ladder. Salons are the least participatory. They're 2 hours. Anybody can come, including non-members to the Alliance. It's a ticket fee. Members are going to get a discount rate for coming to a salon, and it's going to be on a focused topic, and it's mostly going to be a presenter, like presenting something to you, hopefully to expand your mind and imagination and evoke some new ideas for you, and then some dialogue about it. The other 2 are a little more intensive and a little more commitment, and that will require applications to get into the Learn to Do labs or the workshops. And I believe preference will be given to members of the Alliance. Before we go any further, I'm going to let Robert speak a little bit as to why he and I are sitting at this table messing around on this concept.
Yeah, so Sue and I guess it's almost 10 years ago now, were asked to create a series of workshops for the National Film Board to help their linear film producers understand the digital space. The Film Board has a digital studio, but the linear regular filmmakers and the digital studio were kind of working in 2 different paths, and they asked us if we could come up with a way to introduce the film people to the digital world and how it worked. And so that's a pretty, these were very successful, highly skilled people in their field. Some of them were Academy Award winners. And so we struggled a bit with how was it we were going to approach this. And we came up with kind of melding Sue and I's backgrounds. So Sue has and she can tell you a little bit more about her background, but Sue has a really great way of helping people learn in terms of activities and the way that the groups work together. And my background was really as a content producer. And so and I had done some workshops at SFU here in the early digital days in the mid-90s. And so what we came up with was a very active participatory workshop where you learn by actually doing. So rather than having a bunch of talking heads and people telling you how to do stuff, we actually team you up with other people that are participants, but faculty members who are experts in their field, and you work together through all the steps of a project. And we found that this helped people, instead of introducing them to a bunch of terms that were meaningless, they actually encountered them in reality and had to work through them and figure out how to solve that issue. And some of those issues are irrelevant to them, and some of them are very important. So that's why we're here, because we developed that program and did it over a serious number of years in different settings and for different clients. So it started with the film board, but then we did it for some other types of clients. And we found that workshop method, that system that we were using, was really, really successful with the participants. They learn, you learn really quickly because you're sitting in a room actually doing, as opposed to having someone talk to you and lecture you. The other thing about it is that it's super fun. The learning, shouldn't be a chore. It should be something that you can have fun doing and that you come out of at the end of the day feeling really good about yourself. And so what you end up doing is interacting both with the other participants and with what we call the faculty. And these are people that work in the field and understand a variety of types of technology and really bring their brain to the table and allow you to kind of get used to their brain for a few days. And every time we've done one, we've learned a ton. And we also have a very strict rule about changing the game as it goes. Sue and I set up an agenda, and we set up a program for the day and for the week, but we change it as we go depending on who's in the room, because it has to change depending on the people and the project. So that's why we're here, because we've done it and we know that it works. And we love doing it, I think is the other reason we're here. It's a lot of fun, it's work, and it's the workshops and the labs are a commitment of time, and it's intense, but it's not intense in a bad way, it's intense in a really good way. As I was told when I first met Sue, when I was introduced to her for the NFB projects, the guy who put us together as a team said, "Oh yeah, at the end of the day, everybody will be hugging when you work with Sue," and it's true. And I kind of went, "Great."
And then you're shaking everybody's hands as they come to the door.
So that's why we're here. Yeah, I mean, my background is as a content creator. I worked at the CBC for 25 years making radio programs. I was introduced very much like you, Dr. Steele, in the mid-90s to the internet and fell in love with the internet and decided that's where I wanted to spend my creative time. And so I left the CBC about 15 years ago to work as a consultant. So I've worked with, and I still work with some very small companies, and I work with some very large companies. But also in my personal life, my wife's an actor, and I've worked in the theater world quite a bit in Vancouver with her, and we've also produced a number of shows together. And so I kind of have this weird world where I bridge kind of the technical, geeky world with the reality of renting a space for $100 a night and trying to fill it with warm bodies. So do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the other stuff?
Sure. Really quickly, I've worked in the independent art scene in Vancouver since the mid-90s. It started as a policy and funder at what was BC Film at the time. I've written policy, I've delivered funds, I worked with CBC as an independent producer supporting New Voice. I've had a startup, and right now a whole bunch of training workshops. I started getting into how do people learn and innovate together, did a master's on that, and it was so great. So I was doing my master's, and then it was the creative community was my clay, and I just keep doing that. So I love getting people in a space where we are all clay together. We just keep playing and learning. So very much these, you'll hear this term design thinking and systems thinking and blah, 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 these theories. All of that underpins everything that I do now, and all the, and I kind of mess with that now in how designs and how we deliver. I really believe that adult learning needs to be fun, applicable, shared, relationship building, You have as much wisdom as we do. It's just how we put all that in the room and work with it. If you want more information about me, I'm happy to talk about it, but I've basically been a consultant and designed programs and initiatives to support independent voice in the arts and diversity in the arts for the past, I think, probably frickin' 25 years now, which is so scary. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry, and I've already hijacked the agenda. I changed the
Yeah.
sequence, so it's
That's okay.
soon
That's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill a little bit into the salons for a second, drill a little bit into the Learn to Do labs and the workshops, and then go through some of the logistics, and then we'll be open to questions. Unless you have a question right now, just throw up your hand. There's not so many of us in the room that it's going to be hard to manage. So the salons. So we have this website that was created for us, which we appreciate here. And it's not very populated at the moment, partly because Robert and I are still booking all the different talent that we're going to want to bring in to be speakers and faculty. And so from that, it's going to all shake out. Salons, so when you click on the salons, here we get getting onto the digital ladder. This is what I was talking about. They're going to be 2-hour events. You'll sign up in advance, buy your ticket. They will probably be in this room unless we find that there's too many people to be in this room or we need to be somewhere else for the purpose of the content. People have asked, are we going to stream it? It's really going to depend on the presenter, partly because we don't have big budgets to pay the presenters. If it's useful and the presenter's comfortable with us streaming it, we're going to try. But if they say, no, actually, this is how I make my money, and putting this online or making it open, we will respect that and say, no, we will not take it out of the live experience. So that's answering that question, I hope, and I hope you understand how we're approaching that in respect to the consultant who will be delivering the content. Salons are going to be a bunch of topics. Some of them are going to be simply on tech tools on how to better organize yourselves. Anything from databases to shared platforms for project building to how to communicate with your potential audience better, to what are the tools and examples of how you use tech to express your creative practice in different ways, whether that's place-based or online or in an exhibit, whatever it is, we're going to start playing with how technology is used for expression. But we will also be doing a little bit on internal organization tools and how to also use tech to get you better connected into the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think the Alliance also runs a bunch of great workshops already on that, so we're trying not to double dip. Like, we're trying to go to content that hasn't already been brought or that you can't get easily as well. So I did some needs assessment surveys and did some consultative conversations to figure out what those things could be. I doubt we're going to hit everything. There's probably going to be 10 salons, and we're already, like, I've got a list of like 20 potential topics. So one of the things that if you have an interest in something that we don't put up here or that you want us to know about, please feed that, because that will go to other funding. We can keep doing more of these. It's just really about the support, the financial support. So please be in conversation with us. We're going to have a Facebook group where people can post. We'll have a hashtag. But please feel that you can converse with us.
I was like cartoon tears when you said database.
Yeah.
Right, like backhand. Yes.
So much.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the other thing is with databases, if you want, like, if you have a database, you want like Salesforce, or if you're looking at something like Drupal or Ruby, like, there's different things that you could also go to specialists for. And we can also probably help direct if you want like a hardcore, I would say it sounds like you need to take like a 2-day course in this, and VCC has that already. So we might try and direct you if it's something. We're really trying to find that nexus point of like evolving for arts groups of all different sizes, from the individual artists to organizations and creative practice. So definitely, again, that's a conversation where we might even be able to lob out to you, hey, there's this cool thing you might want to check there. We're not going to double that content, but it's available. And because sometimes it's just like, I just don't know where to go, right? I know I need something, and I don't know where to go. So that's rung one of the ladder. Then we flip. I'm going to let Robert speak about the Learn to Do labs and the workshops, and we are both the co-designers for co-designing all of this. So why don't you hop on to run two?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about labs and workshops in 2 ways. First of all, they are different. So the labs are open to pretty much anybody who wants to apply. There is an application process, but you can just be curious and want to come and learn. And the labs will be structured in the same way as the workshops. But the difference is the workshops are idea centric. So if you're going to apply, you're applying with an idea that you want to develop. So that's the difference in the two, and one of them is 2 days and one of them is 3 days. So the labs are 3 days, the workshops are 2 days. So if you think about the workshops as you're coming with an idea that you want to see developed, that you want to see explored with a team of digital experts and other people that are interested in the digital space.
And giving you feedback on that.
Yeah. So, but the structure of the two is really the same. Big picture is there'll be participants who have come with an interest in this, and we will be breaking you up into small teams and assigning you, giving you people to work with that are experts in a variety of fields. So our faculty come, I'll talk a little bit about the faculty. Faculty is almost like too large a name because really they are co-participants. It's just that we brought them in because of their expertise. And what we look for in our faculty are people that first of all can really work with people well, have expertise in a certain field. And so we're gonna have people from a variety of backgrounds. Some of them will be hardcore coders, some of them will be designers, some of them will be production managers, some of them will be artists, some of them will be creative technologists, people that sort of sit in both worlds. So they'll have expertise in a variety of areas. But what they bring is a really wide general knowledge of the digital space because they've got experience working in a bunch of different things. And they are currently all working in the digital space. I can't tell you who all of the individual people are because they won't always be the same for each of the events.
But we love them all.
But
This is like Robert and I are like pulling jelly beans off of our favorite like candy shelf.
We do
Going,
love
what if we
them.
put this person with this? Like it's really fun, and we're getting to invite these people to see when they're available to come join us. Some will be from out of town, and some are local.
Yeah, so think of that experience as an opportunity to explore the digital space with people who are experts, who are working in it every day, who are bringing their knowledge and with the idea of sharing that knowledge with you. The practical run of the day is we'll put you in a small group, you'll work with a couple of faculty members, but then you'll always be coming back to the larger group and explaining what you've been going through, and the other groups will explain what they've been going through. So you're learning within your own group, but you're also learning from the work that the other people in the group are doing. You'll be exposed to a variety of types of technology, but the idea isn't really to teach you how to use software. It isn't to teach you how to, work with a database. It's really the broader principles of how these things all work together and how you approach a project. Because as I say, I work with both large and small companies. The challenge is, whether you're a Microsoft or you're a two-partner legal office that, one of my clients is in this building, the problems that they encounter are all exactly the same. It's just the scale of those problems changes if you're a large company. But the problems are, how do you wrangle an idea and make it into something that isn't just, a light bulb? How do you actually explain to other people who might be partners what that idea is and how it's going to work so that you can get money or buy-in or whatever they're going to help you do? How you then take that out into the world, you birth it, right, launch it, and then how do you support it when you're done? Those are all the same issues that large and small companies have. The difference, as I say, is just scale. So we actually break down the workshops into the kind of like 5 core areas. And the first is probably the hardest in a way and the most fun, and that's what we call ideation, which is where you actually talk about the idea that you came to, whether we give you that idea to work with if you're in one of the workshops, in the salon, at labs, which rung am I on, or whether it's the idea you brought. We spend a lot of time on ideation, which is, what is it?
Why?
Who's it for? Why are you doing it? And why is it actually digital as opposed to somebody on the street corner handing out pamphlets, right? Sometimes handing out pamphlets on the street corner is actually more efficient than trying to do it in the digital space, right? And how does it fit in sort of holistically into your organization? So the ideation phase is often also about taking things off the table and having a great big idea and then narrowing it down to something that you can actually execute and it's going to be valuable to your audience and the people that are there to support you, and hopefully new people. Sort of what's the story? It's a little bit like if it was a play, it's like really the script, right? It's honing down the script and coming up with that thing that you're actually going to commit to. The next phase is kind of more about the nuts and bolts. It's the architecture, what we call the spec or the specifications. And that's really like, how big is it? How many things does it have? How often does it happen? What parts move and what parts don't move? What are those parts? So it's all the itty bitty detail of how the thing works. If it was a house we were building, it would be the blueprints. It would be the architectural plan that you can then take to someone and say, this is what we want to build. And in fact, after you do ideation and you do the spec, if you were a small organization and you were looking for people to help you execute this thing, you would actually have something you could pitch. Because you've got the idea that you can explain in 2 or 3 slides, and then you've got the spec, which really talks about the scope, how big it is, how long it's going to take, who's going to be involved, you know, what's it going to be when it's finished. The steps after that are really go a little bit quicker. The next step is development, which is you've got the spec, you've got the drawings, now you're actually going to build it. For the purposes of the workshops and the labs, we're not building anything. You know, it's all on paper, so the development part will really be more an exercise in scope and who needs to be involved. Do we need a database analyst? Do we need a database builder? Do we need a back-end expert who knows content management systems? Do we need somebody who knows the variety of technical parts that are involved, right? And that may only be 3 people, or it may be 30 people. It may be somebody you hire, it may be somebody you hire out. So we'll talk about all that and try to help you know what questions to ask when you sit down with people to try to get one of these projects going. After that, there's really alpha, beta, and launch, which is really just a fancy way of saying, I'm going to show it to people, but it's not really working. I'm going to show it to people and it's sort of working and I want to find out what's wrong with it. And then I'm going to actually let the public use it and hope that it actually works. And launch is sort of both exercise in project management, which is getting all the pieces together, but it's also making sure marketing is lined up, making sure front of house people are, like all of the different moving parts are now implicated in this thing that you're going to do. And then there's the after launch, which I really call run of show, because typically in the tech world, they talk about launching something and then nobody ever talks about what happens afterwards. And that's where what we're talking about here is very different, because you're really talking about offering something to your audience that's either going to have a time limit as say a installation or some sort of performance, or it may be something that is running the life of your organization. So you have to think about what the implications of that are in terms of staffing and management. Typically now what you're talking about are projects that have content generation of their own, so that when you launch it, you're actually giving people content, but they're actually generating some content as well. So how do you handle that? What's involved with that? Can you automate that? So for instance, I worked on yeah, go ahead.
Can you give an example of a project?
Sure. Do you want to talk about one of the projects that you guys did in the sort of physical space, or do you want to?
We're going to have a woman come and do a salon.
I think that's a really good example.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun one. And it's Barry Alderberg. And she got a commission from the Jewish Women's Federation. She lives in New York. And she went to one of the Eastern European countries and she started interviewing women of a certain age, talking about their experience of being Jewish women of that age in this particular town. And she would take photos, and really high-res photos of their kitchen, get their audio recording, and she would always pick up an artifact from that area, whether it was a tablecloth. And she was also picking up like cookies or some food thing or some smell thing, some sensory thing, and she'd buy a whole bunch of it and ship it back home. And so she did these series of interviews. Then she did a roving gallery display. So she would come into a space, within 48 hours, set up this interactive exhibit where there was like projections, and then she would put little kitchens together. She had little, she just often used what was available. She had a few things she always brought in her traveling kit, like the tablecloths. She had cookies. And so you would go around and you would go and sit in these different women's kitchens, hear their voice, hear their story, and have something was evoking the space, and kind of go around. So it was an exhibit. She traveled this all in like 4 cases, moved it to 8 cities. It was very low budget. And it was like snap in, snap out. It was just like fabric screens, and she just had, I think, 1 or 2 people traveling with her where they just do fast setups and have this experience. So that was like one version of a digital project. Another version of a digital project could simply be, say for example, you want to do something around puzzles and gaming. Say you have a subscription-based theater, right? You have a 6 series and you have people who are subscribers. It could be that after every show, you know what night they've gone to it, the next morning they get an email and there's a little digital puzzle based on the show, right? Whether it's a crossword or whether it's like a matching or something, just some that furthers something about the story or gives them a little insight about what might have happened to a character during the night after the show ended. I don't know, right? And that could be super micro, right? Just a few things that one person's designed and one person's doing, and it's all automated. That, okay, we know you're at the show this night. The next morning you're gonna get this email that's thank you for coming, and here's a little like chocolate from the box that's your, extra.
So,
So it could be anything.
yeah, I think the important thing is that you don't come in with you can have an idea of how it should be formed, but you may just be a good idea, and you don't know how it should be formed. Because the process really is about exploring that idea and figuring out how we can make it in a digital world and make it really cool. So it might be that it's an idea about, I want to have a closer relationship with my audience that come to this theater or come to my dance studio or whatever that is. And here are the things I have, the assets or the things I have to offer. How do we maximize that in a digital space? So that's kind of a big, broad idea without a real focus. And the ideation phase is really about, okay, well, what can we do? Maybe that's just a social media campaign. Or maybe it's not, maybe it's about capturing people's dance steps on their phone. The ideation phase is really to explore a cool idea and figure out how we can do something in the digital space, and then figure out how, whether you can actually pull it off.
All of it's scopable, right? So you can go big, you can go small, but you can always go, what's the micro piece of this idea we want to play with and test? What can we build in 48 hours to see is that interesting or not interesting? So there's this whole methodology is really about right sizing, testing, being playful, expanding minds, seeing the different tools, getting to play with different tools and go, wow, or what if we took that and that, moved to some, and it could be for a single artist, it could be for a large organization, but the idea is to get this playful thinking going and introducing a bunch of new tools and not feeling as intimidated by it. And how do you work with people to explore these ideas? So I think you've done a good job of explaining the labs. So the labs is really, you're going to come in, we're going to put you into teams, we're going to give you an inspiration. Each team will have an inspiration package of saying, this is what we're going to give you, this demographic, this tech, this creative methodology, and you're going to come up with some idea. And each team will have something different, so you'll get to learn from what each other's doing. And you will all hit a wall. There'll be a time where you're like, oh, my brain is dead, I can't think anymore, because this is part of the cognitive expansion, right? Is that you're hitting patterns that aren't working anymore, so we need to have some time to create some new associations. Then there's breakthroughs. And then on the workshops, it's you're actually coming in with an idea, and we're going, okay, we're all going to be focusing on the ideas of the people who are coming in. And when you come in with an idea for a workshop, there may be one of you, there may be 3 of you around that idea, there may be 5 of you, but it's really whatever, so that we can, whatever's your team size is, it needs to come in, well, not too incredibly huge, or we'll be like, here's your one sandwich for your team for lunch, so that you can kind of do that clay meeting, so that by the end you're like, okay, we know what we want to test and build, we're going to start tomorrow, or we have a really good idea how to write an application for this, or we know we need a partnership that's a large scale partnership, we know how to pitch it, whatever. Okay, so there we go. So run 2 is the learn to do labs, where there's no real projects, low stakes, it's just about learning to play with the clay and having a really good time in building relationships. Run 3 is nurturing your own digital project, which is the workshops. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. What else are we going to do? I am going to flip over here. So this is, and you can't see it, and I apologize. How do I get this better? Anyway, what this is my notes about the application form. So there'll be an application form to get into a lab. There'll be an application form to get into a workshop. Here is basically how basic it is. This is what I got. Name, organization, discipline, email, phone. Then we have, I have to make this bigger so I can see it. Just please check the box that best describes your level of digital know-how. Here are your boxes. 1, I type and I email. 2, I have a smartphone and use some apps. 3, I have a millennial who tries to keep me up to date and also bails me out. 4, I love to play around with tech. 5, I'm a bit of a tech nerd. So all these levels are welcome.
Where do you get a millennial?
Yeah, exactly. Hang out in high school. So, do you require any mobility or sign language support? If so, let us know so we can prepare. And then we ask this, please list 3 things, a project or otherwise, that has inspired you recently. This does not have to be something to do with tech. And then we ask you if you have social media accounts to list them. If your organization has social media accounts, please list them. And then, all right, we have the dates of the Learn to Do labs. So which of these dates could you participate in? If you're only available for one, let us know. If you're available for all 3, it's more likely we'll be able to fit you in. The workshop has the exact same form with some added pieces. The added pieces for the workshop are a half-page description of the idea you're thinking of workshopping, half page. Short bios of the people you're currently involved in developing this idea with, no more than a page. Tell us about the technology involved in your idea, if you know what tech you want to use. List 3 needs you have concerning this project without including money or funding. 3 needs you have. List the need and what questions you have around that need. That's the application form. Then we have the standard Canada Council opt-in self-identification information, which is for our reporting and inclusion and diversity. So that's the application form. Important dates. So in early December, we're hoping to have these application forms available on the website. January 7th, we're going to start publishing our salon schedule, and we might just put the first 3 up, because as we're confirming our people who are coming in, and we always know that these people may have to switch some dates last minute according to their own lives. So we will be printing the salon schedules and the topics as we confirm them. January 14th is going to be the deadline for all the lab applications and for workshop 1. And the reason we're only doing workshop 1 is because we figure the people in the labs will want to possibly have a chance to generate an idea and apply later. So there's 3 labs, 5 workshops. March 8th will be the deadline for workshops 2, 3, 4, and 5. And March 15th will announce who's going to be in those workshops, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Where do you watch for this information? There's a blog. There will be a blog that goes live on our Digital Ladder site, or in the BC Alliance newsletter, which they always have tons of great information. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover. So let's open up to any questions. And please, those of you who are remote and digital, please also toss your questions, and Joyce can pass them along to us. So what questions do you have? Anyone? Yeah.
Suzanne Steele.
Hi, Suzanne.
Are you going to be talking about intellectual property in this anywhere?
I don't know. It was one of the topics that came up for a salon was intellectual property. It's a huge, juicy, deep intellectual topic. I don't know. I don't think so, really. I think we're really doing more of playing with technology and applied. I'd say that is one of those things that I don't know that this program is the best to serve, but I love that there's the curiosity, and it's good that it keeps surfacing. So that might be we need to figure out a space possibly. There's so much to cover. Like, we were like, okay, with our budget, what can we do and what do we think we can do well? It was like, okay, there's so many pieces in this field. And we'd love to have enough juicy nuggets that we can also say, okay, now we're really clear what we need to do for season 2. Other questions?
Off the top of my head, like, what platforms do you guys see as like the top platforms that you're either implementing already or keen to evolve past? Because Vancouver has so many upstart companies that are really so at the forefront of building all of this. Like, are you in talks with any of them, or?
I would, I'll let Robert respond just a minute. I would say the platforms are less of a concern for me as who the artists and the artist groups that come forward that are interested in learning. Because if we know who they are, what they do well, and what they want to do, then we're like, okay, is this something that needs to be an app? That we need to get an app? Is this a game engine thing? Is this like an installation that is sensor triggered in a physical space and we need to play with iBeacons and things that people can touch screens? Is this something that needs to be an audio project? So in terms of the tech and the platform, to me, That's a question after we get to know you as the participant. Who you are, what you do well, what you are trying to do. The tech comes as the after to match. How would you answer that?
Well, I would answer it in a couple of ways. We typically say when we go into these that we're tech agnostic, that we don't really want to talk about the technology right away. Because sometimes if you start with the technology, it hems you in. But realistically, sometimes it's good to talk about the platform that you want to actually exploit because it has a set of rules that you have to work within. And often by the time you get through the ideation phase and some of the planning, you say, you know what, we'll just use this technology because it supplies these 17 things that we needed to do. So we kind of go in it, to, I'm not trying to dodge your question, but we kind of go at it in a couple of different ways. So for instance, with the film board digital work, they typically will never use an existing technology in its form that it exists because their whole mandate is to explore and innovate. So what they do is they take bits of different things and create something different. And I think for the purpose of what we're going to be doing with you guys, I think it's going to be a little bit of that because we're really talking about creating something that doesn't really exist, right? We're creating about some kind of experience that doesn't necessarily exist. But if you ask me right today, like what's really hot and what's going on, anything social right now is just on fire, right? So if you look at Instagram, it's a weird kind of communications tool, but it's on fire.
But who knows for how much longer?
And the other thing I would say that is also really relevant right now is live. So anything that is in real time, interactive, that you can participate in either just as an observer or as a participant is also really, really pertinent right now. So there's a bunch of technologies around those things. And I'm kind of, because I think, the arts is both sort of a canned experience, which is I present something and you watch it, but it's also can be a live experience. I think we're going to be bridging both of those worlds, right? So that, and maybe it's going to be a little bit of both. So,
I want to respond to one other thing.
and we're in a great place in Vancouver because there are people making all sorts of really interesting things here. So, I just had a 5-year long contract with Microsoft here just down the street, and they're doing all sorts of really interesting things in the augmented reality space. So this is where you wear goggles that are sort of like fancy sunglasses, and you're not excluded from the outside world. You can see the outside world through the glasses, but there's an overlay of something inside that world, and you can do this, right? And Sue will love this technology when it comes out, because instead of sitting at your keyboard, you're actually gonna be able to move stuff around like this. Pretty cool. So they built a mask there, for instance, which is a First Nations eagle mask that has some augmented reality to it as an experiment. So they're doing some cool stuff. But then there are also really small teams, like my son works on an app. It's a fitness app. It does one job very, very specifically. It's on your watch, right? Or it's on your wrist in some form. So, kind of really big things and really small things. But we're in a great place because we've got all sorts of really interesting teams here. But also now, it kind of doesn't really matter where you are because the teams that are working together are distributed. And, I just did a project, so the CEO's in Seattle, the developers in Squamish, and then one of the other developers is on the East Coast. And we just talk over Slack, and we don't ever meet. It's weird, but it works. So we'll talk about some of that stuff too in terms of how people work now and what you can do to facilitate creating a team where there is no team, creating that virtual team that works really, really well. Right now for me, if I didn't have Slack, I couldn't function. And what is it? It's just a messaging app, but it's actually a little bit more than that. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff in terms of just practical little tools that you can use to make your life a little bit easier.
I'm going to also respond to one thing. So one is, when you choose your technology, Robert says it comes with rules, it also comes with an audience. Like, who's on this? Like, these are millennials, these are mostly women, these are mostly English speakers, these are mostly people middle class, whatever it is, right? So that's also important to know, is like, who's in that room that I'm playing with, and who's not in that room. So that's also, I think, important. I think it may help also, so just so you know, some of the salons that we're planning, one is like video and video streaming. like all different video tools, like how to work with video. Another one is like micro apps or micro tools for creating small little puzzles or experiences. Like what's already there that you can play with, and in 2 days, like you can learn it in 4 hours, and within 2 days you could have something, right? So to this woman who's going to come and talk about these exhibits, right? These traveling exhibits she did. So the people we're trying to bring in, and then we're also going to have like the database and content management, you know, and emails and posters and ticket sales platforms. Like we're trying to kind of bunch some of those topics together in the salons as sort of the first run level of dialogue. And then so you can come to any salon, you can come to one, you can come to none and still apply for a lab or a workshop. We might have hardcore people that show up at everything, like do all the salons, come to a lab and come to a workshop. This is where I say it's a hop on, hop off, opt-in experience. We're just trying to create all these little sandboxes of different sizes to build these new cognitive sort of associations and muscles for playing with this. And then, you know, next year there's going to be new technology out, and the year after that there'll be new technology. But it's just as sort of it's kind of getting yourself warmed up to have that. How do I even get into this space and play with it? I feel like we're talking a lot. Any we have 2 minutes till our time. Is there a question from online? Anybody?
No.
Anybody else have a question? So, we'd love you to talk about this. We want to make sure that we have a breadth and range of people and disciplines and creativity in the room. We want the individual spoken word artist. We want that dancer. We want the Vancouver Opera. Like, you know, there is a possibility we have put a supplemental application in for us to try and get to some of other cities in BC to take some of this programming further into the province. So that's a standing request we have out there. This is all an experiment, very much so. And you know, if we get feedback from the community that it worked well or it didn't work well or what they feel they still want, that's just another application to go in for another year, right? So we're going to do our best with the money we have here to at least start somewhere. So you're all invited. We invite you to invite others, and I just don't want us to feel intimidating.
Yeah, the skill level really is, there's no bar. Like the bar is curiosity and I want to explore, and that's it. And nobody's going to put you in a position to make you feel like, oh shit, I don't know this stuff, and so I'm an idiot. Like the goal is to really like take all that stuff off the table and say, this is about exploring ideas, and this is about exploring creative space, and we're just applying some different lenses to that creative space that happen to be digital. We've got people here who know this stuff and can help you understand it, and how to use it practically, or what not to do, right? So think of it as an opportunity to actually sit with some really expensive consultants and without having to pay them, is the other way to look at it.
Yeah. So I think that's all we got.
Right.
Yeah,
So I have
certainly.
another question.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually have a specific project in mind, which I would really love to have, I guess, a consult.
That's a workshop. Apply for a workshop.
A workshop.
Yeah, if you have a specific project in mind, put your application in for a workshop, because that's where we'll have 2. So the workshops are 2 days, the labs are 3 days.
Okay, but I also would like to have some hands-on understanding of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so you can
So
do
would that be the workshop?
Yeah, so you can do both, right? Like there's no reason why you can't do
Okay.
a lab,
Okay.
which is really the exploration, a lot of exploration.
But not on your project.
But yeah, it'll be on.
Yeah.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it.
And then you can follow that up with an application for a workshop where you actually then have the idea that you want to develop, but you've actually done some groundwork on the lab, so
Let me tell
you
you why.
you feel a bit more informed.
Let me tell you why we don't want real projects in the labs. We don't want one person coming in with their idea, because then they'll be like the director or the producer and everybody will defer to them. We don't want that crap in the lab. In the lab, it's completely egalitarian. It doesn't matter about how the project ends up being. It's low risk, it's high play, it's all around the muscles and the thinking and the practice. And it's like running around the track for the first time. Doesn't matter. So that's why we don't want anybody's project idea coming into that space. We will create false projects for you to work on and challenges. The workshop is where you come in with, here's my idea, it's important to me, I'm possibly emotionally reactive to it, or I need you to understand the sensitivity of my community, or it comes with this story behind it. And that's where you'll have people, mentors, sitting with you and going, okay, tell me more, or what about this, or how about if, or okay, here's some ideas, you know. So it's the workshop where we focus on your idea. The lab, nope. No IP in the room that anybody really cares about.
And the salon
And the salons are simply where we have speakers talking to
Got it.
different topics.
Got it.
It's more like a presentational with a dialogue.
Thank you.
So low stress to sit in the room for a lab. You know, you can sit there and never interact. Everything else is highly participatory. So, yeah,
How large are you expecting these sessions to be?
good question. Salons, it's whoever wants to come, maybe 10 people in the room, maybe 40, I don't know. So you'll have to RSVP so we know if we need to get a different room and buy a ticket. In the labs, we will have, I think it's 3 teams working consecutively, so I think 15 participants, something like that. And in the workshops, I think we'll have 5 ideas that we work with, 5 teams, so 5 ideas, whether that's 1 person or 3 people attach each idea, and then mentors. We figure if we do more than that, we just can't really really all work on those ideas together. That's why we have 3 labs, 5 workshops. I'm sorry, this is so confusing. Yes, hopefully we'll end up being clear on, you can go back to the website and kind of, yeah.
A comment and a question.
Yeah.
The comment is thank you very much for this. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and as I've worked as a writer for many, many years, but I don't have digital skills.
Yeah.
And without them, I'm seeing my income, winnow down. And there aren't a lot of opportunities to get these skills without spending a lot of money. And that leads to my question, are you thinking about cost to participants, but mostly just a lot of gratitude for you for what this brings to.
So let me tell you what's in the budget that I know of, and I know there's some shimmer around, but when we did the budget, our intention was it costs nothing to attend a lab or a workshop, and in fact, we were trying to build in a small stipend for people, and knowing that some people may want to travel into town to go to one, but Brenda would have to speak to that because she's the one who's the mastermind of all the money.
So worst case scenario is it's free for you.
Yeah, the worst case scenario is it's free, and I think we'll be able to feed you a little bit, not a lot.
But then the salons aren't free.
The salons are, I think, $10 for a member, $15 for a non-member for the 2 hours. So we're trying to keep it all accessible, but we just need that partly because we'll need to figure out, do we need to rent a bigger room or not? We need you to commit. We need to not do the Vancouver thing where you say you're coming and then not, and then we've spent all this money on a room and you're not there. So that's really, so it's the great questions. Salons, $10 for a member, $15 for a non-member. Pre-buy, I'm sure we'll be able to sell some at the door, but hopefully the whole idea is we need to have an idea of who's coming ahead of time.
Do you know who you still are looking for as far as your workshop
Faculty?
speakers or what have you?
We have a pretty kick-ass list at the moment of folks, but if you have any suggestions, you can let us know. And both of us are a little territorial around making sure that the people in the room have the right personality and attitude to be collaborators and really good explainers.
If you have a suggestion, I'd love to have it. I'll meet with them. And I'll just I didn't bring any of my cards, but you can reach me at robertouimet.com. ROBERTOUIMET.com. So just my name.
We're totally over time. We're 5 minutes over time. Not totally terrible, but we're over time. And I just want to acknowledge that. So why don't we close? And Robert and I are going to be hanging around a bit, as is Joyce. Joyce is going to be the point person here at the Alliance, and so she's going to hold all of us together with all this complexity. And I think that's it, but thanks for coming. It's nice to see that there's some interest, and like I say, I think my biggest heartbreak will be if we build all these tents and hold all these parties and no one comes.
I don't think we're gonna have that.
I hope not, but we're we want to have a really fun, good time, and we want to do something that's actually going to have a little bit of a bump up, and we can see the energy and the intelligence of the sector have this great little leap. We're pretty chuffed about that opportunity. So thank you.